Hey everybody, we are back to this line art here, and I'm going to try to finish off this line art during this session and hopefully start on the color. Just going to try to clean it up, address any major problems that I see, any mistakes in the costume design, but it looks like we're almost done. I do want to encourage you, and I don't want to forget this in every video, if you have a sketchbook or a tablet, feel free to draw along with me while you listen to my banter and watch my drawing. Or you can just watch, it's up to you. Or listen, it's up to you. I want to try to make this interesting, both on the watching and the listening side, So, I don't really have a topic prepared today. Just kind of diving back in after a few days break. I haven't been drawing, just, kind of living daily life at home, with my baby and, doing chores and work and stuff like that. So, but we're back. I did finish the book, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Maybe I can sort of turn this into a little bit of a book review. Now, it was a great book. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. So he goes over his childhood, which is really a messed up childhood. It's like I would encourage you guys to read the book, but if you're not interested, I'm not going to dive too much into like the nitty-gritty details of his story, but just the general ideas I got from it. And maybe just, stuff that happened, but, without going into the details of it. So he had a pretty bad childhood. He had an abusive father, and basically was able to escape that life with his mom. His older brother had stayed behind with his dad, for one reason or another. But he stayed with his mom. This piece of the boot is confusing. I think this one, maybe we'll pull that all the way back there. That might be simple. I can't really tell from this angle. So I'm just going to do that. And so as he was growing up, he always felt like he had a huge disadvantage because of his terrible childhood. He had a hard time reading. He had a stutter, and he had because of his abused childhood, he had toxic stress in his body. He was always on edge. So that adrenaline and cortisol that's pouring through your body when you have stress really took a toll on him. But he growing up, kind of getting into the main part of the story, he had this job as exterminator. I think he joined the military for a while. I don't remember which part of which branch of the military he joined first. I don't remember which branch he joined first, but he joined, and then he kind of had a job as an exterminator, killing rats and bugs and stuff. And then at some point he was he was out. He just mentally checked out. He didn't want to do it anymore, and it felt like a dead-end job, I guess. I don't really remember what the exact mentality was when he had that experience, just a bunch of cockroaches and stuff. But he's like, F this, I want to be a Navy SEAL. And it was, he was always kind of inspired to join the Navy SEALs, and he always felt like those are the hardest guys in the world. And so he did it. He quit his job and started training for what the Navy SEALs call BUDS training, BUDS. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's one of the most intense training regiments in all the U.S. military. In fact, in one of the most intense in all the world. And when I started reading about it, and I was actually so curious about his about what he was describing that I looked up some videos on it. And it's pretty insane. BUDS training, Navy SEAL training, they go through what's called a hell week. For 1 week in the BUDS training, the instructors are trying to break you mentally and physically. So first of all, there's physical tests, obstacle courses, carrying things, going into cold water for long periods of time. And one of the craziest parts of it, along with the emotional abuse of instructors, which military training seems like you might experience in any type of boot camp. But that's going on. But one of the craziest things about the BUDS training is sleep deprivation. I think what's planned for you is 5 hours of rest, 5 hours of sleep in a week. That's not 5 hours a day for the week. That's 5 hours in an entire week. And when I read that, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was possible to survive that kind of training. Like, and what's interesting, when I was looking up some videos on YouTube about some Navy SEALs who've been through it, they're like, that training is valuable because that's what the job is. Like, there was a Navy SEAL who was talking about, an assignment he had in Afghanistan where they were like sleeping like in a cold mountain, like freezing temperatures, and they just had to get through it because that was the mission. And you have to, I guess, learn how to suffer, because that's just the job. And the willingness to suffer, for by any means necessary. And I read another thing that said, if as a Navy SEAL, if you know that you're with a bunch of other guys that have been through the same training as you're already in another class of human being. Like, you already know that you're with guys who are willing to suffer, like, to extreme levels, to get the job done. Because in the BUDS training, they are trying to break you. They are trying to get you to quit. That's like their goal. Because it really siphons out, anyone who, quitters, basically. And it's so easy to say, I wouldn't quit, something like that. But that's, David Goggins was really describing, like, the mental state of that kind of experience, where you start asking the question, why am I here? And if you don't, like, create some kind of mental framework, some people call it mental acrobatics as like a derogatory term, but you need that. You need some kind of mental framework, some kind of foundation inside, digging deep within, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna get through this pain and suffering. I'm in a daze. I haven't slept at all. Why should I even continue this? I could just go back home. They even try to tempt you, like, go back to your wife or your mom, or, there's nice food here. If you quit, we're going to treat you to this, like, little hotel or whatever, something like that. They'll try to tempt you, with things like that. And like, the majority of people quit. Like, I think that, I don't remember what percent, but only a small percent of the guys who start it, finish it. And David Goggins, he mentions later in the book, like, Army Ranger School. It's kind of the same deal. Like, some of these trainings are so intense, that's literally what they're trying to do. And it's not just the mental fortitude and the physical fortitude together. Like, if you fail certain tests, you fail out. So there's certain tests like diving and holding your breath, and obviously obstacle courses and running and stuff. But since it's the Navy, there's a lot of water testing. So cold water, submersion, diving, doing things underwater, stuff like that. So it's, I don't know, I've not lived that life at all. My dad used to tell me when I was a kid, because my dad was in the Air Force, and he used to, like, encourage me, like, hey, maybe you should, join the Air Force or something like that. And me and my cousins would joke about it. Like, he would tell my cousin to join the Air Force, and we would joke with each other, hey, join the Air Force, like, pretending to be my dad. And in retrospect, I mean, my life would have been quite different, maybe even better if I had joined the military. It's not like I know everyone might have their qualms about, serving the government and working for the United States. But that aside, politics aside, becoming a hard soldier, and some people say become hard to kill is like one of the captions I saw in a lot of those videos about Navy SEALs. Become hard to kill, becoming a hardened soldier, become willing to suffer. You're growing in virtue. And as you guys know, I am Roman Catholic, and I have a list from an exorcist named Father Chad Ripperger, popular priest in the social media sphere, because he has good talks. He speaks very clearly, and he speaks about exorcism and the demons and stuff. But he's very clear about, like, talking about virtues. And he made a list of virtues, 64 of them. And on that list, one of them is called mortification. There's fortitude is like a header, and there's like a few listed virtues under the virtue of fortitude, and one of them is mortification. That is the willingness to suffer. Now, even if Goggins is not, like, I think he does believe in God, but even if he's not like a practicing religious or a practicing Christian or anything like that, I mean, he has that virtue, mortification, like, on one of the highest levels in the world. And it's clear to show through his accomplishments, because after he was a Navy SEAL, he worked as a Navy SEAL for a long time. He got injured, and then he worked in recruitment. And even if he wasn't doing all the crazy physical challenges, he was putting all his time and effort into like being a good recruiter, being able to speak well, improving on his speech. Coming from a kid, uneducated, with a stutter, with toxic stress in his body, he came such a long way, and it was really inspiring to read just the progression of his story. And I'm thinking, okay, we can learn from anyone who is successful in some way. I have my faith, I have my religion, and so when it comes to my theology and my morality, the rules that I live by, my rule of life, again, the no rules that I talk about, there's no rules, and then yes, excellence, like following the you shall not, the 10 Commandments, and any other kind of thou shalt not, any modern thou shalt not listed and not in the 10 Commandments, we got to follow. But what do we say yes to when we've said no to all these things? We say yes to excellence and virtue. And David Goggins, and another person I'm going to tell you about, whose book I'm starting to read, had the virtue of mortification in spades, and I do not. That's something, coming from a life of someone, addicted to video games and other things, using these addictions as escapism from responsibility. It's really amazing to hear someone's story who did not shy away from hardship, rather embraced the pain, because he knew where pain would take him. And he knew that, not taking the pain is just being like everyone else. And he didn't want to be like everyone else. He wanted to be tough. He wanted to be hard. That's how he proved himself to himself. That kind of way of life, for me, it feels like kind of gratuitous, feels like vainglory, like I don't know, but there's something definitely virtuous and definitely something honorable there. Especially, when I first heard of David Goggins, I thought he was just an athlete, but he was a military man. He's a Navy SEAL. I'm sure he did great work in the military, helping people, and serving his country, and there's a lot there, that it's again, that life is foreign to me. I've never been in the military. My dad was, but it wasn't until much later in life that I actually started hearing my dad's stories about the military. Some crazy story where Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines killed a lot of people. The Philippines was not prepared for that eruption. My dad, working as U.S. Air Force in the Philippines, he told me a story about, he was digging up bodies in the ash for days. And that left an impression on him. And he didn't tell me that story until much later in life, until I was into my 30s already. It's interesting to hear, because I knew he was in the Air Force, but I didn't know what he was doing. I know his main job was carpentry, masonry, some manual labor, construction, things like that. So he learned a lot about that in the Air Force. But I didn't know he was, he's in the military. He has to do jobs like that. So that was quite interesting to hear about from my dad. And I've never really thanked him for his service, but yeah, thank you, Dad, for your service. Maybe I should tell him that. I've never told him that before. It would be really awkward for me to tell him that, but who knows? Maybe I should. But yeah, David Goggins, military man. But if you could have a bar graph of your virtues, this, I don't want to waste my time, but I'm interested to see if I could look at a bar graph of my virtues and see which ones I have. I feel like I have some, maybe some higher than other people, maybe some, a lot lower than other people. I feel like, I definitely have, there's a lot that I can grow. There's so much room for growth, and there's a lot of virtue that I don't have. That's my instinct, is that all of it can grow. And just to see Goggins or read a story, how he built that virtue of mortification. He doesn't call it that, but I know, from my theology that's what it is. Just the willingness to suffer. And all athletes experience this. Training, that's what training is. That's what training your muscles is. You're destroying your body a little bit, so that you can build tolerance and your body regrows stronger. What they say, whatever kills you doesn't make you stronger. And I've always been skeptical of that phrase. If you get your leg cut off, it's not like you're gonna grow your leg back. you know, you could grow stronger mentally, but then that's just like you know, a catchphrase at that point, because you're not going to have a stronger leg from getting your leg cut off. But the body is designed still with the immune system, with how muscles and bones regrow. They will try to, you know, fortify whatever area was damaged, you know, with stronger skin, stronger muscles, stronger bones, whatever. So that's why karate guys, and you know, they'll punch bricks and concrete, and you know, Muay Thai guys will kick trees, and you know, they'll damage themselves. You know, it's controlled, right? They know their limits, but they know their limits by pushing their limits. I'm sure there's a karate guy out there who punched you know, a brick too hard and permanently injured his hand that he can never punch again. I'm sure that's possible, but you know, athletes, you know, they understand the concept of progressive overload, right? And that's not just testing your muscles, but you know, testing the damage that can be done to yourself and still survive and grow stronger. And David Goggins basically saying you can develop what he called the armored mind, where you can callous your mind just like you can callous your fists and your knees and your bones. He said you know, I'm sure, you know, he's not a scientist. I'm sure there's a lot of science to it there that can be proven, but he was speaking more figuratively, creating that armored mind, creating that calloused mind, so that the mind can withstand anything. Because it really is a mental game at the end of the day, which he discovered in Bud's training, that any man, you know, pushed to those limits will be tempted to quit. So, you know, what sets one apart is like, no, I won't quit, you know, to my death, because I don't know how far I can take this pain, but I won't quit. You know, and again, using whatever mental acrobatics, you know, if you have to tell yourself you're better than other people, you know, whatever it is you need to do mentally to get through, you just got to dig deep and find that. Okay, I finished the line art here. Before I move on and stop the video, I'm gonna go ahead and do a fill. Now, the lasso fill tool, I think it's this way. So here's what we'll do. I'll go into a new layer here. I'll call this base, and we're just gonna use a gray, or maybe, yeah, we'll use a gray or like a purplish gray, because there's purple and gray in the character design. So we'll just use a base color, something like this, like a mid gray with a purple hue. And what I'll do, instead of just brushing everything in, I'm gonna try to do the lasso fill real quick. So color fill here on the selection tool, and I'm just gonna get in here and tap, draw and tap, and we'll take it slow. I know I used to think that Credos was faster than this, but I think because you can let go and keep tapping like this, Procreate's actually might be better as far as like time efficiency. This color fills are one thing in art, like in digital art at least, like flat color fills. I'm sure even acrylic painters will think about this, but for some reason with real life paint and brushes, it feels more satisfying to do color fills. In digital art, because you know, like, all the color is going to be exactly the same, it's like more tedious because it's such like a basic task that doesn't take any thinking at all. Whereas, you know, I think with acrylic paint, what is that line? I'm gonna have to fix that one, but maybe I won't color it for now. Maybe that one too. But yeah, with acrylic paint, you know, if it comes out flat, it still looks pretty nice, because, you know, most paint textures and most real life textures are not flat colors. So to see a flat color in real life, like, might look pretty appealing, but to see a flat color in digital art is just so basic. That's just how things always look. It's in the shading in digital art. It's in the, you know, the painting that makes things look interesting. Unless you use flat color really well, which we're gonna try to do here. In fact, I might go back, because it looks like I thickened the line art, you know, on the borders, kind of just without thinking much. But I remembered I do want to try to imitate the AFK Journey art style that I found, where I found it very appealing that there was just very little outline at all, and they just used the colors, the color contrasts to create lines, to create depth, and plane changes, shape changes, etc. So we're almost all the way around here, and I can just go back in and fix anything that, you know, didn't look right. I don't want to get lazy though. I still want to stay in the lines. But basically, I'm going to fill this all. Yeah, we're almost there. Oop, I have to go around here. I thought we were almost there. Tap, 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 tap. There we go. So I'm in the wrong layer here, but that actually looks good. Let's put this down. All right, so we have our basic setup. I'm gonna clean up the fill-in a little bit, but this is what we have here. So that'll be the end of the video for me. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for listening. God bless. Bye-bye.